Hey guys, it's Matt. This is the second video on Matrix 4. Much more interesting, I hope, to the people that typically come to this channel. All the truth drops, the conspiracy, the fun stuff we like to talk about. This movie was riddled with it. I will be all over the place, but I took detailed notes. The video just before this one is explaining the plot because it's almost impossible to determine what the heck's going on in that movie on a first viewing, or unless you're some sort of Matrix super fan. But all the conspiracy stuff is here. And in cases like this, it's really fun to think about the 15 people we may have picked up because of the titling of the last video, considering Matrix 4 is so popular right now. It is possible Google let me off that little leash and somebody stumbled upon the last video and appreciated the synopsis, and then they're going to come here and they're going to hear this crazy shit. They say, this guy seemed completely sane in the last video. Now he's completely gone off the edge. He's speaking in code. All I have to say to those 5 or 10 people we may have picked up that may still be here, listen to the sound of the words that are coming out of my mouth. Do I sound insane to you? This is how the world really works. It is not insane doing the type of analysis that will follow. If you don't understand the types of things that are about to be presented, as most people do not, you are as lost as Neo in the first Matrix movie. Most people literally, he worked at Metacortex, and he was a disgruntled little cubicle worker, and he went out at night as a hacker. Most people in this real world that you call Earth are as lost, and maybe you are, as Neo in Metacortex in Matrix 1. So all I can say is, the main theme of the movie, free your mind. Anybody that stumbled upon this, free your mind. This isn't as insane as you think it is. I'm not going to do this in chronological order. I'll probably bounce all over the place. And the more I think about it, I don't think I'm going to give my opinion too much here. A few times where it's appropriate, especially in this first segment. But what I liked, what I didn't, I'll try to do another video on that if anybody's interested. I'll try to keep that to a minimum. We'll keep the real hardcore truth drops to the forefront here. So let's start with the Merovingian, where this is one area where I do have to give a little bit of opinion. The Merovingian is one of the most incredible, fascinating, well-thought-out characters in movie history as a side or tertiary character from the first 3. The way the Merovingian is presented in this movie is absolutely pathetic. However, the biggest truth drop with a million different possible interpretations of what he's saying comes from what the Merovingian says. It's completely fascinating what the Merovingian says as to how you want to apply this. So, the guys from the first 3 movies, the Merovingian, the Frenchman with his perfect dress and his trophy wife and his perfect parties, he shows up completely unexpectedly in the middle of Matrix 4. It's inappropriate. He looks like a bum. Looks like his teeth are falling out. His hair's all over the place. He's with a gang, and his gang looks like a gang of bums. And he starts. It's during a scene where Neo's fighting with Smith, who in Matrix 4 is also masquerading as his boss, the boss of the video game company. As these fights are taking place, and with Bugs and Neo, it's a big fight scene. You have the Merovingian, and it's again, the presentation of him as such a beloved character is horribly pathetic, and almost all Matrix fans will be very upset as to how the Merovingian's presented. He's up in his stinky clothes and his torn threads. He's up there screaming down at Neo, "You ruined my life. Kill him. I used to be famous. I used to be powerful. I used to have style and panache." He's just spouting off at Neo. And it is incredibly pathetic to somebody watching the movie, except one sentence where this is the absolute, if I could only talk about one thing in terms of truth drops, truth in movies, conspiracy, the types of things we talk about, this is the one thing I would talk about. As he's screaming down at Neo, saying, "You did this and you did that." I just tried to copy and imitate the Merovingian. No way. I just deleted it. I'll just say what he says. He's screaming down, basically saying, "Before you came, Neo, films were better. Film was better. Books were better. This is exactly the things that we've been talking about, guys. This was better. Originality, creativity mattered. So wait a second here. Okay, this is a huge truth drop because there's no purpose for the Merovingian to show up in a movie where he doesn't belong, he doesn't play any part at all, and he's screaming down at Neo that the world was different before you showed up. Film was better, books were better, originality mattered, I was this, I was that, I had style. He screams a bunch of other things. It's very hard to make out what he's saying. And in that sentence where he says films were better, books were better, he says something else that I can't quite understand. But this is exactly what we've been talking about, guys. And I don't think it's any coincidence it showed up here in the Matrix. I'm not going to do too many explanations because the people that are here have been studying this stuff, some of them longer than I have. But guys, just in case there's anybody new here, or we do have those 5 people still here from Skokie, it's just worth doing one more time. What do we talk about? We talk about the world that once was. Many of us talk about a different reality. Many of us allude to the big day in 2001, 7/11, 2001, A Space Odyssey, as a day that potentially shifted reality to something different. But there was a world where movies and Hollywood and producers could put out a Raiders of the Lost Ark, could put out a Gone with the Wind, a Star Wars 1977, incredible movies where something changed, where it seems like the reality that exists today, those that say inside, or those that live inside the reality that call themselves the creators, the artists, they can't do it. They can't do it in music. They can't do it in film. They can't do it in poetry. They can't do it in any form of art, modern art, whatever hangs on a wall, atrocious. And we always go back and forth and say, you know, what's the reason for this? Why can't there be another Raiders of the Lost Ark or Wizard of Oz, or just movies that are just incredible works of art? Nothing has happened for 20 years, basically since 2001, A 7/11 Space Odyssey. In fact, the movies that come out are so bad, continuing the old franchises, that we believe, and you know, there's merit to this, of course, even if you especially if you look at Star Wars, that they're not just bad, they're actually trying to be bad to ruin the initial art that was produced in the last century. Yeah, 5 people from Skokie. The last 3 Star Wars were meant to be bad on purpose in order to ruin the original. Now, there's no way anybody could possibly take the other side of that, considering how bad the product was for the last 3 Star Wars, considering the company that produced them had access to the greatest creative minds that exist anywhere on what you call Earth. All right. Now, what is destroyed on purpose versus what is just bad, we can talk about that some other time. If you don't believe this destroyed on purpose thing, which most of the people here do, anybody would say that for some reason, this world, this reality is devoid of creativity. And it's not just films. Look at music. Go find and play the White Album or Sgt. Pepper's or any great band from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Compare it to what is presented today as being on top or the best or Travis Scott. And I'm not going to do it. But it's night and day. But it's not just music. It's not just films. It's television. It's whatever. All forms of art. And it's gotten so bad across the board in every genre of art that it's a symptom of something wrong with reality itself. Now, this is a 10-hour presentation. I'm not going to go here. Relating it back to the Matrix, in this fight scene, you have the Merovingian spouting all this weird stuff. And at one point, he's yelling at Neo saying, "Before you came, books were better, movies were better." And I'm like, my God, this is exactly the type of thing we've been talking about. But I'm not going to be able to get to the bottom of it here. But what does Neo coming represent to the Merovingian that we could apply to this reality? Before what came? At some point in this world, if you're over age 35 or 40, you remember looking forward to that great next album from a band. And it was as good as anticipated. You remember the sequel to a movie coming out, and it was as good as anticipated. Art, you just remember a world that no longer exists, and then you have the Merovingians spouting the exact same thing, but blaming it on Neo. right? We need to, over time, and it might take weeks to get a determination on what this means, determine exactly what the movie's trying to present there and blaming what we notice on Neo. Related to this topic, I probably should have started with this, but it is appropriate now because it's related. I don't believe that Matrix 4 was meant to destroy the first three. Now, I'm not going to give too many opinions. This movie has some major problems. All right. There are certain areas of this movie where, again, me and Greg and a few people could get in a room, book ourselves into a room, and we could fix these problems. Critical Drinker probably make a video. Oh, I'm going to fix this and I'm going to fix that. Yeah, you wonder if all this brain trust and Lana Wachowski, how did they let this happen? How did they let that happen? Okay, there's some major problems. I'm aware of that. I wasn't just bowing down to the movie in awe the whole time I saw it. There's some good and some bad. It's not nearly as bad as many people say. Not nearly as bad. Any movie where you watch it a second time and it becomes 20% better the second time you watch it is not a bad movie. A horrible movie is almost unwatchable a second time. So it's not that bad. Let me just get to the point here. We can argue what's good and what's bad later. Again, I'm not bowing down to it. It had some major faults and problems. Of course it did. But it wasn't out to destroy the first three. No way, in my opinion. Do I want to say they tried their best? If we are in a world now that is devoid at the highest levels of creativity, what the Merovingian said, before you came, the books were better. That's horrible. I'll stop. Everything was better. If we live in that world now, then maybe, this is all they could muster. I almost get the feeling they did do their absolute best. If it was out to destroy the first three, guys, I mean, look at, I don't want to go and do 10 more minutes on this. There's so much here in front of me we have to cover. Look at The Force Awakens and Luke taking the second Star Wars. I mean, they're so absurd. They're so ridiculous. They should literally get on the Rotten Tomatoes meter. They should have zeros on the strength across the board. That's all faked. That they were told reviewers to like it, or you have Luke saying, "I don't want to get in the fight," squeezing milk out of a teat of some giant space beast, and then throwing the lightsaber over his shoulder. I mean, 8th graders could have done better. There's no question they were made bad on purpose to destroy. This is not that at all. I mean, if you think that this is made bad on purpose to destroy, go watch The Force Awakens again. And you have these, I mean, the way Han Solo was used, it's night and day, guys. This, because they almost like they don't have the ability to create another, I keep using the same example, I'm sorry, but Raiders of a Lost Ark. I'm just using that because it was, guys, I said this recently. You heard about the movie. You went and saw it. Anybody over age 45 may remember. It was an incredible experience. And was many movies like that and other forms of art. Because this reality is devoid of being able to do it, it's almost like they did everything they could because this franchise is just too important to those here that run this place. The creeps that run this place. The Matrix franchise is too important. And there were too many truth drops in it for them to be able to you could say, to destroy the first three. There were zero truth drops in The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens and the last three Star Wars are completely useless pieces of crap. This was not that. This movie was riddled with one-eye symbolism and riddled with 7/11/2001: A Space Odyssey symbolism. When both of those are coming full force, then it's not. They would not put all that in a movie that they're just trying to make as bad as possible to destroy the first three. Riddled with the one-eye symbolism, things most people wouldn't even pick up. The fight scene with Neo and Smith, again, his boss in the video game company. 3 major fights, probably. Smith is not a gigantic character in this Matrix. He plays a role, comes in when appropriate. It's pretty interesting the way he's presented in a new shell or new body. But at one point, he slams Neo's head into a concrete wall. And Neo's head is to the side, half smashed into the concrete. Smith's fingers are right over his right eye, all by design. No question about it. Now, nobody is going to pick that up unless you're looking for these specifics. In a fight, Matt, in a fight scene, absolutely it's right-eye symbolism. And there was a lot of subtle things there with the eye, as well as even the Zion, remove the Z and the N, is now I-O. I-O, Io is also, the same as a Jupiter moon. So it's all there, and that type of symbolism would not be there if the movie was not very important to them, or a movie that was simply trying to be horrible to destroy the first three. And the same themes that are just old hat to all of us, over and over again, but just completely new. And to the popcorn cruncher, they don't even know what we're talking about, but so they do it in a dumbed down way, like the duality theme. How many times does that come up in what we do? But they present it in the movie as binary. Neo's working on a new video game called Binary. There's a scene very early on in the movie where Neo has to go meet with his partner or his boss, who the CEO turns out to be Smith, and has this beautiful office. I think all of it is filmed in San Francisco or downtown San Francisco. His office has windows on the 50th floor, whatever, that overlook all these other skyscrapers and people on the streets and cars moving and buses moving. And he says, wrote it down here, "It's so perfect, Neo. It's so perfect. It has to be fake, or it's got to be fake. It's so perfect. It's got to be fake." Just looking out the window, implying how everything fits together and how society is orchestrated. And I don't know if you would interpret it the same way, but I interpret it. The first thing I thought of was lone scum. That's an anagram, but I'm more used to saying it that way. Elon Musk. Elon Musk says about the car, the Roadster that was very legitimately and seriously put into space. He said, "Well, on TV it looks so fake, it must be real. It looks so fake, it must be real." And that just it almost seemed to be an allusion to that, because he said it in almost the exact same way. It's so perfect, it's got to be fake. The five people from Skokie are like, did this guy just allude to the fact that Elon Musk didn't really send a Roadster into a billion-year orbit around Mars? Yeah, let me take back the illusion. Let me make it crystal clear. Nobody sent no Roadster up into space, okay? I mean, if you can't see through that, you go out and book a lunch date with Bugs Bunny. In this movie, switching gears a bit, super huge themes just come over and over again. Again, you would never. There isn't one profound theme in Star Wars. It's just useless. These themes kept coming and coming right from the beginning when Bugs is meeting Morpheus as a program who's just understanding this world isn't real. He's starting to see the Matrix code in his mirror, and they just come to a conclusion. Bugs and Morpheus, the choice. Here we go again with the same profound thoughts that the first Matrix generated, and it's something that's worth thinking about by everybody. Choice is an illusion. Here it comes up again. Choice is an illusion. Goes back to the mythical creatures of ancient Greece, the Fates. There are very smart people in this community, very smart people, that believe choice is an illusion and everything is faded out, and you're absolutely following a script. And because you're believing in it and believing in choice, it is all laid out for you, who your parents will be, what you will do. Because you're believing in every aspect of it, you still are learning from your life experience. You're still going to take a lot away, but choice is an illusion. This is obviously one of the age-old debates of all time. Right at about the same scene, I found this to be very interesting. Not sure other people will. Just kind of hit me. Morpheus, when he's talking about his wake-up process, and again, he's a program. He was an agent who's starting to see the Matrix code, and he's talking to Bugs, and he kind of says, once I knew the world wasn't real, and I knew my whole existence here wasn't really real, he says, then I knew immediately what I must do. I don't know why that hit me, and I got to think about that. As soon as he saw through the fake world, he then had clarity in terms of what his personal life would be about or for, even though he was a program, and he knew what he must do. And I don't know, it just kind of, maybe it just hit me personally, because my path became very clear, not what I'm doing here necessarily with this channel, although that's part of it, but as soon as I saw the world as this is a fake presentation, we live in some sort of a matrix or a script. That doesn't mean we're all in a Bill Cosby Jell-O pudding pod somewhere. I mean, matrix, I believe the world is very fluid. It is like a matrix, but it's naturally designed by the spiritual aspects of you that aren't here, or what you may call God. There can be a natural design to a matrix or a simulated reality. I think the creeps here want to hijack that and turn that into more of a technological or digital hijacked simulated reality. Doesn't mean all simulated realities are bad, but the point is, once you see through it, whether you have a YouTube channel or not, there is a sense of clarity for your own life. I just found it very interesting, and I don't think it was a coincidence that was presented the way it was by Morpheus. So as soon as I learned the world was fake, even though I'm a program, he's basically saying, then I knew exactly what I needed to do. Yeah, I think that is... I think once people drop the veils, what most people down your cul-de-sac will never, unfortunately, I don't want to doom them. I shouldn't say that. It doesn't look like they'll be able to drop their veils, but there's always hope for everybody. But what does that lead to? It just leads to a confusing matrix life. The clarity comes only when you see this is all bullcrap. So I like that part. Now, I don't want to seem like I'm praising this movie either. It came from the highest level of the creeps. Whatever is inserted maybe contractually had to be inserted, or we know that how we go back and forth as to what they feel they have to show us. I mean, let's just talk about a very negative aspect that was blatant. The allusions to the big event in 2001, allusions to 7/11, 2001, A Space Odyssey, and what went down were all over the place. They were in posters in supposedly Neo's apartment. They were in wallpaper in the bathroom. The scene where Trinity and Neo are on the roof with the helicopters coming in and the deflection of the missiles. I mean, of all the buildings in downtown San Francisco, they have to be on the one whose outside facade exactly mimics, not exactly, but come on, it's so close to the way the facade or look of the towers. I mean, really? I mean, I don't know why, honestly, it was so blatant why people just watching the movie can't, popcorn crunching people. They would think we're crazy for talking about this stuff. I don't see why they can't see through it. Even the way it was one building, but it was a corner and it was shot. Some of the angles were shot, so it looked like two buildings and each looked exactly like the towers. And then when the missile or one of the explosions went off, there was a ripple through the buildings, a wave, a shock wave went through the buildings. So the allusions to or the reference to their big Sade, cherish the day, I won't go astray. Yeah, they cherished the day, and it was like I don't know, like it was a little ode to themselves or something that this kept coming up in the movie. Now Matt, you have to make the connection. Why? How is this movie bridging that event to today's events? And that could all be in there. I don't know. I just watched it yesterday. I don't have all the answers, but I know, it was just obvious how many subtle references were to their big Sade, cherish the day. And then it became blatant with the bots, that these bots were used as bombs to jump out the window to try to hit Neo and Trinity on a motorcycle. One of the final scenes, they're racing through the streets on their motorcycle. Trinity's driving, Neo's in the back, and they have this bot army. They're just like what we call NPCs. They're people or characters in the Matrix where there is not a real person in a pod, in a Bill Cosby Jell-O pudding pop. It's just some sort of just a spiritless background person of the Matrix that the analyst can organize and swarm thousands of these things. In 1 second, they just become completely mind-controlled. They're not real people. And as Neo and Trinity are, speeding down the streets in the motorcycle, these things, which, again, if you're just in the Matrix, you just think they're regular people. They're throwing themselves out their windows, just splattering to their deaths, trying to hit and kill Neo. And thousands of these things are coming out the window. Now, again, if this isn't an obvious reference to the big Sade Cherish the Day, I mean, it was very, it was inappropriate. It was, I don't have the words. It was sick. It was really sick. That it was, in other words, it's obvious the creeps were trying to tie in that event into this movie. But then to go as far as to show hundreds and hundreds of bodies leaping and splatting, really? It was obvious, okay? Obvious. Now, goes back to the video I made about a week ago. When I made that video a week ago, I just had access to 1 second clip. I had no idea there would be all these, quote, jumpers, people flying off their balconies in the movie. I had no idea what was coming in the movie. I saw a 1 second scene, and I saw as the person came down head first, they bent their knee and their leg in a certain way, which is obviously meant to mimic the Hanged Man tarot card, as well as the famous picture that was presented by Time magazine or whatever. The most famous jumping image is called. It's not called the Hanged Man. It's called is it called the Jumping Man? I don't know, but it's obviously a reference to the Hanged Man tarot card. I saw it in that 1 second clip, and I said that's exactly what this is. And I had no idea what was coming in the movie. In other words, whatever I thought in that video a week ago was 1,000 times confirmed when I saw 1,000 people jumping out the window, and I had no idea that scene was coming. So yeah, you have to be associated with the highest levels of the creeps to put something like that in there. I don't want to. Whatever I seem to be praising this movie, trust me, I'm just not going to go there. Lana, whatever, high level creep. And I don't believe she and the other she, brothers and sisters, I don't believe they're the sole creators and they wrote it, and they're just used by the system itself to put. I believe they directed it, and here, this is the camera angle should be this way. But in terms of what the system needed to put out on behalf of the minions, on behalf of reality itself, they're just pawns, in my opinion. And I'm not talking about the people that run around and claim they made the Matrix and that the Wachowskis stole it and all that. I believe that is complete. That's just a complete distraction, sideshow nonsense. I don't believe it. And I know there's several that claim it. The Wachowskis didn't do it. And I talk definitively like I know. I don't. But I feel strongly. They were used to put the movie out, but people assign all the creative genius to the Wachowskis or Lana. Come on. There is no more important franchise to the creeps than this. It comes from the very darkest of dark back rooms, where Lana's just somebody that goes out and executes it. Lana, go out and get us a box of donuts. And put extra cream in my latte. A little bit more important than that, but go execute. That's all I think. That the brothers and sisters, that's all I think they are. Okay, but that I don't have any idea. That's just my gut feeling. And one last thing, even in an opening scene where Bugs is trying to red pill the agent Morpheus to get him to come in to their side or see the truth, they end up, at least as one of the opening scenes, I think, they end up jumping head first out a window. And you don't need a telephone line anymore in this Matrix. You can just be unplugged. And then as they're in the air falling, they return to, the real world. They're taken out of the Matrix, just, beamed away. But why did you need to jump out the window? Why not just, why not just walk down the hallway and be taken back into the real world? It's a lot of jumping themes come up a lot. Even Neo's suicide attempt, where they recollect or go back in the day of what the analyst or the Neil Patrick Harris character, who is Neo's psychiatrist, talks about Neo's suicide attempt, which was jumping off a building. So there's just the amount of references to jumpers is unnatural. One of the most famous lines from the first movie, assigned or associated with Agent Smith, is so important to quote them that they had to reiterate that in this movie, where Smith says in the first movie, and in this movie, Smith says it as Neo's boss, where he's still putting up the charade of being the CEO of the video game company, looking out over the city, people living out their lives, oblivious. And, he can quote Smith because Neo supposedly explained in the Matrix 4 explanation video that's before this, Neo believes he wrote 3 video games called The Matrix, and it wasn't really what happened in real life and what really happened to him. He's convinced that he's written 3 video games. So, as it's referenced by the CEO of the video game company, people living out their lives oblivious. He's just referencing a line of the supposed video game. But it's carried forth in Matrix 4 because I think the creeps are very proud of that. There's no doubt about it. People living out their lives oblivious to how basically everything works. Nothing works the way the people down your cul-de-sac believe it works. So I can understand why they work that in again. They're very proud of that fact, how people are, the Sheeple are managed, people living out their lives oblivious, and all but maybe 0.5% are. If this was a live stream, it would show 2 people from Skokie still remain. The other 3 jumped ship, if you will. They couldn't take 2 thought I was absolutely insane out of my mind. 1 just was starting to wake up to truth, couldn't take it, and went back to the Super Friends. But there's 2 people from Skokie still listening if this was a live stream. And to them, I would say a lot of people in this community, we ponder how real other people are. What different types of people, quote, people are here on Earth? What different types of incarnations are here? Are some people more real than others? And this Matrix, yeah, that's a Freudian slip. This movie, Matrix 4, really endlessly presents this concept, even more so with this new class of individual that they have in Matrix 4 called, they're called the bots, I believe, the bots. But again, they're not attached to a human in a pod, completely empty vessels. We call NPCs or organic portals. And this is a very strong theme with Trinity. When Trinity meets up with Neo, they don't know each other. They're both fully entrenched in the Matrix. One of the opening scenes, do I know you? And they kind of have a moment, a recollection that one seems familiar to the other. And then their family, complete NPCs, complete bots or NPCs in this movie. The kids come in, start, mommy, not quite, but like, mommy. The husband comes in, he's like a total asshole. He's like, come on, we got to go. Nothing's, just complete superficial people. And the Matrix 4 does a good job of presenting that concept that, this whole family is background people just put there to distract Trinity, to keep her from the truth. Now, with Neo, he didn't have a family, and these memories of a past life as the one, they squashed that, as I referenced in the last video, by 2 things. 1, saying he's a video game designer who designed video games called Matrix 1, 2, and 3, and whenever he gets memories of having lived that life, then Neil Patrick Harris, his shrink or psychiatrist or psychologist, says, Neo, think of what you're saying here, in so many words. He says, so if you're thinking you lived the life, that's your video game. You're crazy, man. And of course, Neo believes he's crazy. Who would possibly think that they had this incredible life as the one? They could fly around, these memories come. And then if that wasn't crazy enough, it's the same as his video game that he supposedly produced. So if you'd have to be crazy. So his handler is Neil Patrick Harris, but Trinity doesn't need a handler. See, the Matrix tactic, literally like our reality with Trinity, is to keep her busy and distracted. When she's sitting with Neo, gets a call. Certain memories you could see are brewing. Things are coming forth. Oh, I've got to go. My kid just got a Lego shoved up his nose. I got to go. See, that is a huge Matrix trick of this reality being shown in Matrix 4. Matrix 4 says, if you just keep Trinity busy enough with her kids just doing nonsense and shoving Legos up their nose. Now, she doesn't have real kids. These are fake NPC characters the Matrix inserted into her Matrix reality. The husband, it's just one of these bots. They're soulless vessels. They're organic portals. Come on, honey, we got to do this. And even she says, the soccer mom of today, come on, kids, we're rolling out. We're rolling out. We're off to cello practice, off to this. She's never allowed to have a quiet time. I said years ago, one thing that we have in common, people in this community that can see through the bullcrap and drop the veils, we know now that one of the major things we have in common is this incredible imagination. There's nobody in this community that I've ever come across that said, I had no imagination as a kid. I didn't like to draw, didn't like to play with action figures, didn't like to create scenarios. Never a one. But Matt, I didn't have any imagination as a kid, but I can see through the 7-Eleven event. I can see politics isn't real. I can see all the stuff you could see. It's never happened. But the other thing I think we have in common, and I put this out years ago, I haven't talked about it, is you almost need like downtime. You almost need like to go off to Thoreau's cabin in the woods for a week or a month, or you need a time where you're not so busy. You're not inundated with taking the kids to cello practice and this and that. There are exceptions to this rule. I know people that run kids around and do all this stuff, and they're as awake as I am. So this one isn't as important as the imagination that a real spiritual being has. But there's a lot of people, including myself, were said, as soon as I lost that job and I was home for 3 months by myself, I saw things completely differently. Go into the job every day. And that downtime, for me, it was losing a job. I mean, I just started watching things, exploring different things, having a different mindset where it was, I told you 90, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, the insurance company. Oh, got to fly to Phoenix. Got to do this. Got to do that. No, there's no time to understand what's real. And that is it's one of the primary blocking and tackling, run up the middle methods of this matrix, the matrix that we really live in. And one more time, if this was a live stream, it would show two people from Skokie are still here. We're going to lose them right here, guys. The analysis of this scene, this is a textbook definition of what we typically can see in a presentation from authority or from a movie or from Wikipedia that would be considered absolutely insane by anybody considered normal by this matrix. And if you're considered normal by this society, is that really a badge of honor you're going to celebrate? It's much better to be considered abnormal in an insane world, but we'll leave that for another time. Let's just get right to the scene. You guys will understand what I'm saying. But anybody normal, I mean, you want to talk about somebody that thinks they stumbled upon a One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest channel. Here it comes. There's a scene, I don't know where it is, halfway through where Neo, he's at his lowest, and he is going to literally he's either going to say, I'm either going to believe I'm Neo and I can fly across building to building, or I'm just going to fall to my death. I can't take it. I need to know if I'm the one, or he's drinking. He's a mess. He's a mental mess. It's where he meets Bugs, and Bugs kind of rescues him from trying to jump to another building because he just wasn't, whether he's the one or not, he's not ready to do it. He's drunk. He's not confident in himself. He would have fallen to his death. That'd be the end of Neo. If you die in the Matrix, you die in the real world. They would have removed him from his pod. Bugs kind of pulls him back. But as he's pondering his life, about to pretty much, he figures, commit suicide, drinking at the top of this building, two things happen. One is there's a very prominent building off to his right with, I think, 10 pillars along the front, 10 pillars down the side. And I'm like, that's the Mausoleum of Halicarnassus, if I'm saying that right. There's 7 ancient wonders of the ancient world, 7 wonders of the ancient world. And probably the least known is the Mausoleum of Halicarnassus. It's going to drive people crazy, so let me just tell you what all 7 of the ancient world. The Great Pyramid, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, the Colossus at Rhodes, the Lighthouse of Alexandria, the Temple of Artemis, the statue of Zeus at Olympia, and the Mausoleum of Halicarnassus. Now, again, I think that is the least known, and everybody thinks they would be able to name all 7 wonders, but most people can't name more than 2. For example, how many people have heard of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon? Nevertheless, I don't know why the creeps love the mausoleum. They do. They love it. I don't really know much about it. I've tried to do research. I've just seen it come up time after time. And there's a lot of buildings. If you go into a big city, you can actually almost find a building here or there where you say that's supposed to be a representation. The top of the building is supposed to be a representation of the Mausoleum of Halicarnassus. Look it up on images. This building is prominent right off to Neo's right. And there's no question it's there to represent the mausoleum. The creeps love it, the mausoleum. I don't know why. You can't even go visit it as a UNESCO site or whatever. Nobody knows where it is. Who knows what it was or what was buried in there, but they love it. And it's positioned in the movie. Am I 100% sure that building is supposed to represent that? No. But then you combine that with he looks to his left. He's about to jump or try to fly or try to remember he's the one. And he looks to his left and there's a pigeon. And you know what's going to happen. The pigeon's going to take off and Neo's going to say, it's not that hard. Yeah, I can do this. And the pigeon takes off and the camera follows the pigeon and it flies right through, quote, through 2 buildings. Okay. Remember how when we broke down the Peter Stuyvesant commercial, the bird flies exactly into the building in the same representation of what's called like the famous CNN footage, or the footage that's supposedly the closest up in one of those 7-Eleven 2001 Space Odyssey references that come from the Peter Stuyvesant cigarette commercial. It's not that blatant, but it's similar. And I thought, there's just no way. Over to the right is a representation of the Temple of Halicarnassus. To the left, the pigeon flies off with the amount, and it kind of into, not smack into the building where a poof of feathers and it dies. It flies in front of the building. It gives an effect not nearly as obvious as the Peter Stuyvesant commercial with what the bird does there. But when you combine these 2 things, and you put that on top of a movie that makes tons and tons of references to the big 2001 event, to me, absolutely, both elements in this scene are on purpose. Now, the pigeon is a little bit of a stretch, even for people in our circles. You can imagine how crazy that would seem to anybody stumbling upon this video from Skokie. The pigeon is a stretch even in our circles. That the Mausoleum of Halicarnassus and its representation in that building, as well as in other buildings like around New York, that is likely. Okay, that is not that much of a stretch. But I think, again, I would not present this if I didn't feel that was part of what's being presented. And I think most of the 10th level Jedis would be like, yeah, I can see them doing that. It's not as crazy as it seems. Of course, it's the most insane thing you've ever heard if you stumbled upon this video. There's another 2001 reference. Bugs remembers the first time she saw Neo. He was at a party, a video game award ceremony on a rooftop, and apparently he went nuts and just went to walk off the building. But Bugs, who was a window washer in the Matrix before she had, I guess, red-pilled, she saw Neo take a step off the building, and she clearly says to him later, "But you never fell." Now, that is not explained. No, well, what happened? Did he just hang in midair? It doesn't. All she says to him later is, "You stepped off, but you never fell." That's all we know. The point of me mentioning it here is when they recreate that scene, and Bugs is a window washer, looks up, sees a man about to walk off a building. Well, the building, I think, either the building he's on or the one right behind, I believe, another building with a facade extremely similar to Tower 1 and 2. Now, again, any one of these on its own is a coincidence. when you have 10 or more, it's not a coincidence, especially in a movie like this and from which it or where it came. As I mentioned earlier, you have the right eye references all over the place, but I should have mentioned right off the bat, there's also the pyramid references all over the place, including why they use San Francisco, the prominent use of the Trans-American Pyramid or Trans-America Insurance Company Pyramid. I don't know what it's called today. I don't know. The Sears Tower became the Willis Tower, became the Pornhub Tower. I don't know. To me, it's the Trans-America Pyramid, the most famous building in San Francisco. That's used as to represent the same thing that's on the back of the dollar bill. It's used throughout the Matrix 4, as is one eye, and the references, the seemingly endless references to the big day in 2001. So more pyramid. When Neo is brought, I guess they can travel around the Matrix or around the world walking through mirrors, brought into a theater where his video game is playing on the screen behind where Bugs and Neo are talking to Morpheus, and his video game is playing on the screen. Well, they're just playing Matrix 1 on the screen, which in Matrix 4 is supposed to be his video game, not a movie. How you play it, they never explain, but they walk through the screen, and the screen is an exact shape of a pyramid. Happens to be right over Neo in the scene where he takes the red pill, and all the silver liquid comes out in Matrix 1 as he takes the red pill. And of course, we would say, of course, that's on purpose, where anybody listening to this would think we're absolutely crazy. I mean, this is just a given. That's a pyramid shape. What else do we have? When he sees himself as an old man, he has a digital self-image, or his residual image is what Neo or Thomas Anderson, Keanu Reeves we see the actor we know. In the mirror, he sees who he knows. But at one point, I guess it's Bugs says to him, this is what everybody else sees. You have something that they've put or overlaid over top of you called digital self-image. And it's a much older man who doesn't look anything like Keanu Reeves. So they make it so he can see himself what people perceive him to be for the first time. It's like a reality overlay on top of Keanu Reeves. Very interesting. And when he sees himself for the first time as an older man, that older man's right eye is just artificially blackened. There's no shadow that should even come into that scene. It's just so obvious that, touch up the right eye, make it black. I mean, there's no reason. It's not an obvious shadow. It's just kind of his right eye is kind of black when somebody's just looking in the mirror at themselves. It was obvious to me. I mean, that's of course what that is. And I'm sure you'd agree. That's another thing people would think we're absolutely nuts. Throughout the movie, you have what you would expect from the Matrix, these big, profound statements. And the Matrix, it follows its heritage or its canon or its lineage, where it puts out profound statements and it gives those statements to people that want to discuss these things or talk. But then just to some of the really low-level idiot popcorn crunchers, it just gives what it promises, the bullet time effects and the jumping and the flying and the stupid jumping up on walls with machine guns and all that dumb stuff. And a lot of people go for that. And, there are how many millions of people, they will never even care to ponder 1 second of the big, profound statements. So, Lana Wachowski, she's given both sides what they want. I'll probably do a third video at some point. I don't know if I could do it today because this is getting long, about the real problems I had with a movie that could have been much better. Some areas I enjoyed, and it's not as bad as people say. But one of the big things I had a problem with, and I don't want to do too much of this, I've got to wrap up the main conspiracy points here, is, what the Matrix is known for, like I just said, running up a wall and shooting a machine gun at the same time and then flipping around. Well, the machine gun scenes and the scenes with the bullet time or whatever's going on amongst the agents, and it was absurd because people would be like literally standing 6 feet away from somebody, 3 guys with full automatic machine guns, and they couldn't hit somebody 6 feet away. And I'm not talking about an agent who can sidestep bullets. It was so absurd. like bugs running down a hallway, two agents like just, shooting at her. Well, anybody would be able to hit bugs running straight away down a hallway, let alone the highly skilled with a gun agents. Anybody that had one day of target practice up at the Annie Oakley Center, they paid $10 to learn how to shoot for 20 minutes, could hit bugs running straight away down the hallway. And they're just, bugs running straight away. Maybe she does walk up a wall a little bit. Well, so what? These agents with their 9mm or whatever they're shooting, or Desert Eagles, she'd be dead in the first shot. So there's tons of that going on. It's so bad and so unbelievable. To a degree, it had to have been done on purpose. We'll talk about that some other time. It is very strange. Well, Matt, isn't that evidence where they're trying to destroy it on purpose? I can see you going there, but I'm not. Let's just point it out for now. We'll talk about it later. So for the people that want to debate the big concepts, like what, the Matrix will always give you that. Like I said, there's always these big lines from any version of Morpheus, whether it be the real Lawrence Fishburne version or a program version. One point I wrote down, Morpheus says, "Are memories turned into fiction any less real? Are memories turned into fiction any less real?" I thought it was pretty profound. It's worth talking about. Are memories turned into fiction any less real? There's been many times, I know there's like no basis for this, guys, but there's many times where I've said to myself, for no particular reason, about the big event in 2001, did that really happen? Could that have been an implanted memory or whatever it may be? But it has come up over and over again. And I don't believe that, guys. I'm not going to put all my chips there thinking that nothing happened. It's an implanted memory. But for some reason, this theme, at least with me, does come up over and over. And it does relate to, even Total Recall. For the memory of a lifetime, recall, recall, recall. Why would they remake that with Colin whatever? I never... the first one's so classic. I never even cared to watch the second one. But the scene where, the psychiatrist is supposedly in his head and, Doug, you've gone on you've had an embolic seizure and you need to take this pill, very similar to the Matrix. You need to take this pill to come back to reality. And I think it's also in Total Recall, a red pill, which is very interesting. But the whole thing about Total Recall is, well, which one was real? And if you could have a vacation, if you went to recall and implanted a memory, it would seem absolutely and completely real. So, I will never take this off the table. There's no way to ever prove that we were just put here in this reality 5 or 10 years ago and everything leading up to it is fake. And I don't believe that. But I'm never going to be able to take it off the table, and you never could argue completely against it. Because once a memory is in there, Morpheus says, "Are memories turned into fiction any less real?" And if you believe it to be a complete memory, but you're told it's fiction, no, you're still going to, it does not make it less real, despite what you're told. I thought that was interesting. Then related, right in the same scene, Morpheus says, "Is reality based on memory nothing but fiction?" So you have nothing to base reality on but memory, or at least, if we could say, well, wait a second, I remember painting this portrait with my little kid, and here's the portrait on the refrigerator. Well, I guess without any form of tangible evidence, he says, is reality based on memory nothing but fiction? Because there is no substance to it. It's based on memory. So he's just equating memory with fiction. And, probably when we get out of this lifetime, the train stop goes to the next station. It'll probably seem all like fiction, just the way it'll be like the way a dream seems to you now. Oh, that's what that was? Oh, yeah, it makes perfect sense. Okay, let's go on to the next thing. There's a scene with Bugs and Neo, or Keanu Reeves, and I think she says, what better than to bury the truth in something as ordinary as a video game? So in Matrix 4, when he's in the Matrix, they've presented Neo's life as a video game, accessible to everyone. Everybody knows the video game. Everybody can play it, but there's no truth in there. It's a video game. If you carry that forward, everybody will have played the Matrix 1, 2, 3 video game in the Matrix 4. They're playing Matrix 1, 2, 3, believing it's a video game. They're actually in pods themselves, right? In Matrix 4. And if anybody from their bathtub is saying, "Oh, is that the situation we're in?" I don't believe we're in pods. But I believe this is a matrix of sorts where the most important part of you is not here. The only debate is how hijacked it is and how, quote, trapped we are. I don't think we're trapped. There could be some certain things that we need to negotiate or do. So, there could be a trap to get a lot of people back here. But I don't think, based on all that we've done and all the veils we've dropped, I don't think it'll take extraordinary measures to get out of here. I think maybe somebody that's gone through their whole lives that have been fooled, they could be trapped. But it's just an interesting parallel where it's just a blatant truth drop where the Matrix says, yeah, just put the truth in a video game. That's how they do things. People watching that from the movie theater, crunching their popcorn, how many people will apply that truth to the real world? Because that's the quote, real world. Because that's exactly how this reality does business. Humpty freaking Dumpty is the biggest truth drop in the world. Tells you about the nature of existence and who you are. I'm not going to get into it. A lot of the nursery rhymes do. The dumber it is, the more truth there is to it, basically. But nobody sees it, and they think we're nuts for noticing it. Right, Greg and I were talking about the new Zion city is called 60 years later. The Niobe is the general or the ruler of is called Io, and he said, "Matt, you do realize that that's just Zion without the Z and the N gone?" I'm like, "No, I didn't. I would have never realized that. I didn't catch that at all." So there's also, he said, it's also potentially IO, like EYEO. There's so many I's presented in pyramids presented in this movie that is, you have to keep that on the table as and I reminded Greg, I think that the one of the moons of Jupiter is called Io. I think Niobe at one point when they're in Io says to Neo, it's very quiet for some reason. Where's all the machines making the air in Io, but it's presented as a quiet place away from the Matrix. And she says, it's amazing how much noise the Matrix pumps into your head until you unplug. It's amazing how much noise the Matrix pumps into your head until you unplug. No doubt about it. The opposite scenario, because at this point in the movie, Trinity has not unplugged. She's still in the Matrix. And the kids are shoving Legos up the nose, and this is happening. And then she's got to do this for work. I mean, I'm just making these scenarios up, but she's presented just as a normal soccer mom that's got just things to do from the moment she gets up because of the kids and all the other stuff the Matrix throws at people to the moment she goes to sleep. And yeah, this Matrix that we're in right now, I'm not talking about the movie, this reality, the reality itself is absolutely expert at throwing nonsense and noise so people never have a moment to contemplate the most important aspects of their life. There's one part where the analyst, played by Neil Patrick Harris, who's like the architect for the most part in this movie. There's people above him, but he says to Neo, think about, nightmares, your own brain torturing you. Nightmares. Why would your own self, your own brain torture you? He's like, that's us. We're maximizing your energy output. He's like, nightmare? You wouldn't do that to yourself. We're doing it to you. Then we're getting, then it doesn't matter whether it's like, I think this is what he's implying. He no longer says this. I'm just trying to interpret that the fear, the energy, the loosh, the anger, whatever's generated in the dream. He's like, yeah, we suck that energy. That's us. I thought that was very interesting. Matt, do you believe that nightmares are, caused by the HARP array and the creeps? No, I don't. I don't. I just thought that was interesting. No, I don't think my dreams are. Is it possible dreams in some way can provide a form of loosh to that? I don't know. And I just thought it was interesting. Certainly don't want to introduce that if it has not been introduced, if you see what I mean, through intention. I do not believe that my bad dreams come from them. It's just a point in the movie I wanted to talk about. There's some real profound stuff that comes from Neil Patrick Harris as the analyst. One other part here says, human beings, the worse we treat you, and the more we manipulate you, the more energy you produce. Yeah. And he's basically saying, and you humans like it. You like it. The architect, everything had to be perfect and mathematical. This new architect or analyst basically is like, no, we treat you worse. You kind of like it. You like being controlled, you human beings. The more we manipulate you and screw you over, the more you kind of like it and the more energy you produce for us. He says this new matrix is way better than that one the architect put that had to be based on choice and everything was all regimented. And he's like, no, here in this new matrix, we just screw you over. And it works, and it actually, people enjoy it and they ask for more of it. Now, he doesn't say those exact words, but that's what's being presented. And if anybody, there's one person still from Skokie, that's exactly how this world works. It's not even a conspiracy at this point. The whole reality is set up to generate the maximum amount of fear, worry, anxiety. 80% of anything you call our problems could have been taken away 40 years ago. It's so obvious at this point. Nobody can see it. So Neil Patrick Harris, or whatever his name is, saying this new matrix is just based on desire and fear. Desire and fear. The yearning, it's just two things. Desire and fear. It's the yearning for what you people don't have. We just make you yearn for what you don't have, whether it be the covet of your neighbor's wife or the diamond earrings you can't afford, or yearning for what you don't have. But it goes right back to why is 50 Cent popping up in my brain from what's that? Get Rich or Die Trying. The little kid's like, you'll get those sneakers someday. 50 Cent. You'll be able to afford these. Like coveting the sneakers through the glass. Like that's the most important thing in the world. Teaching little kids that. So you yearn for what you don't have, and then you dread losing what you do have. That's all the whole reality system is based on, as presented by the analyst. But guess what? That's exactly what this world is based on. And people think it's a movie. It's real, dude. I mean, desire for what you don't have, and yearning and the desire and dread of keeping hold of the junk and the materialism you've accumulated. So there is, the Tibetan monk or what up there with nothing. There's a tremendous amount of freedom associated with shedding that attachment. And then he talks about the 99% want that, and you just flip it, it's the 666. And then a bullet in slow motion is headed towards Trinity, and he's slowed everything down to super slow-mo, but he's still in real time, the analyst, because he's like all-powerful at this point, and he just puts an apple in front of the bullet. Apple, Genesis, it's all, it's all there. And a movie that has this much symbolism, allusions, big thoughts is not out to destroy the first three. There's none of this stuff in Star Wars. I mean, none of it. And if there was, it would be so bad it wouldn't even be worth looking at for anyway. Towards the very end, Neil Patrick Harris sitting in his chair when Trinity and Neo are like all powerful and they control him. He's like, the Sheeple, he calls them Sheeple. I've never heard that in a movie. The Sheeple like my world. The Sheeple like the world we've created where they treat them like, I'm just ad-libbing, they treat them like dirt. And they don't want freedom. They do not want freedom. And right when it, again, this is something that you guys would all catch this one. The moviegoer, the popcorn cruncher. Get to the concession stand before it closes. Get to the concession stand. Yeah, wait, Mike and Ike's, he's saying they don't want freedom, and he puts his hand right out. And in the distance is the Transamerica Pyramid. Puts his hand right under or over the Transamerica Pyramid. And he's like, his hand is waving in front of it during like the whole 5-second part here. The people don't want freedom. I mean, come on. That's not even a conspiracy. I mean, there is no possible way to take the other side. Everybody listening, if there's one guy from Skokie still here, every single person listening to this that participates in channels like this would 100% agree that is symbolism making the reference to no freedom to the pyramid. It was put in there on purpose. People think it's a coincidence. Are you kidding me? There's a little bit more here, guys, but I think it gets into the final video I want to make mostly about what I didn't like about the movie and what I liked about it. It's certainly not as bad as people say. I do believe it was their best effort. I believe there's something associated with reality itself where this class of creeps simply cannot do what reality allowed them to do. Or was that Pisces and now we're in Aquarius and they can't produce? They have no imagination? I don't know, but I think they put their best effort into this, although there are some examples, blatant mistakes. You would say if they were trying to put their best effort, why would they have done this? Which so I can't quite reconcile that. But nevertheless, these are the major points of, quote, conspiracy that we would look for as we're watching. And I will do another video about some of the things that bothered me. And then go revisit, the whole 7/11 2001 event with the organic portals jumping like crazy, splat, trying to get Neo and Trinity on the motorcycle, splat, 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 coming from high-rise buildings. Very offensive. Absolutely a dedicated allusion to 2001. And, again, how many people but us could ever see it? Thanks for listening, guys. We'll be back I don't know if I'm going to do something tomorrow or Christmas. It depends. Dad's trying to say we should go down to my uncle's in Abington, and I don't know if we're going to do that, and I don't know. And then certainly we've been doing Free Voice on Sunday, so if at the very latest, we'll be back on freevoice.io on Sunday. Thanks, guys.